Hello out there in Radio Land. On this week's episode of Kruegerecords, I'm joined by a true frontman with charisma, the singer, guitarist, and head songwriter for the band Countless Thousands, Mike Danger Van Gorder. Danger the musician is a self-described theater kid at heart, so it seems appropriate that his Glendale, California-based trio is perhaps best described as theater punk. The band has toured extensively and hasn't been slowed down one bit by COVID, with the release of their brand new pandemic record, Countless Thousands and the Triumph of Justice. When Danger isn't rocking faces up and down the coast, Mike, the dedicated husband and dad, is a city official in the state of California where he advocates for accessible housing and tenants' rights. And today, he's brought a record for us to listen to. It's punk rock time, friends, because this is Kruegerecords.
Three and grin. You smile and let me in. We sit and watch the wall. You paint it purple.
Welcome to Composers Kruegerecords, an exclusive Patreon series where my musically inclined guests take me and you on a deep dive into their favorite albums, artists, and songs. I'm your host, but you already know that, so let's get into the important part. As you heard in the intro, my guest today is frontman extraordinaire Danger Van Gorder of the California punk rock outfit Countless Thousands. I'm a huge fan of this guy and his band, and I'm delighted to have him on Kruegerecords today. Danger, thanks so much for being on the show.
Yeah, man, this is exciting. You've been a long time supporter of our meager little enterprise, so it's really cool that I can come on here and share the space with you. I've always really liked the composers. Like I don't know if you've done it because, I mean, my life went to shit right around the time that you guys really got your game together. But you got to do The Last Starfighter, man. It's like the movie holds up pretty well. The special effects are terrible, but the story is great. And the music is so good. It's so much better than it has any right to be.
I'm curious, who does the score to The Last Starfighter?
I don't know. But maybe that and then the John Adams miniseries. The John Adams theme is super good. HBO.
Yeah, it's composed by a guy called Craig Safan, who I have never heard of, but he also did Stand and Deliver. And the music to the TV show Cheers.
How about
that?
Somebody somewhere knows his name.
Somebody somewhere knows his name.
Cheers reference.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah.
So before we get into the album that you brought for us today, which, by the way, I super duper enjoyed and I'm stoked to talk about. Can you tell us a little bit about your musical background, your musical taste? Obviously, you're in a band. So can you tell us just a little bit about you as a musician and what you're into? Yeah.
So growing up, my house was full of musicians in the sense that, like, my mom is a singer, and then my dad played guitar in all the church outfits. Like that's how I first understood music, was the dirgy, plodding, just garbage that they play at Catholic churches.
Oh yes,
just like lift
God,
you up on eagle's wings. Bear you on the breath of dawn, make you to shine like the sun, and hold you in the palm of his hand. I'm converting to Judaism, but I still like all of that stuff is still just concrete inside me.
Absolutely.
So growing up, I was like kind of resented guitars, and because I only heard it as like lame acoustic stuff that my dad would play. Like he really liked Simon and Garfunkel, whom I now appreciate, but also like who did the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald? Gordon Lightfoot. Ugh, like all of that scene.
He's a national treasure up here.
I'm sure he is, but you have better national treasures.
We do.
So we'll go ahead and skate past that one unless you want to fight. That's fine. But yeah, like I had an older sister who was really into musicals, and like, so I would hear Rent on repeat.
Oh boy.
And You're a Good Man, Charlie Brown. Eventually, like I started getting into that at right around the same time, though. It was like middle school for me. And the friends that I had, oh, you know what? I skipped one really important thing. It all starts with Weird Al. It has to start with Weird Al.
Fantastic.
Weird Al is it. Yeah. That is where it began. And it's really, he has informed so much of who and what I am as a musician. Yeah, he's, let's call him an international treasure because it's true. Maybe North American treasure. Either way, we all deserve Weird Al. He's great.
Agreed.
But yeah, so that's like grade school for me. Middle school was my shitty friends telling me that I wasn't allowed to like punk rock because I was lame. And if I listened to AFI, that made it less special.
Oh, really?
So they had this hoarding mentality, and I say they, but I really mean one kid that lived near me. And I was like, I want to be cool like you and have a tan and skateboard. And none of that worked out. I didn't get tan. I never figured out skateboards, and punk rock was something I had to find for myself. So one day when I went to, okay, there's actually a few more twists and turns here. So yeah, the whole story. One day I went into the Hot Topic at the Westminster Mall in Westminster, California, and asked about two bands that somebody I met at my sister's prom, because I took her friend to prom because nobody wanted to take her to prom. She's very nice. And I was her younger, I was 2 years younger, not supposed to be able to go to prom. But some kid at that prom mentioned RX Bandits and Midtown. And so I went to the Hot Topic at Westminster and said, RX Bandits in Midtown. And this gal, Shannon, I'll never forget her. Shannon said, okay, well, those are really great bands. What you should do is check out these sampler CDs. We got sampler CDs for Vagrant Records, a couple others, Drive-Thru Records. And that's like where like my own development in music really began, was hearing tons of different bands. It wasn't a product of somebody guarding it from me. It wasn't me like inheriting it from my sister or being annoyed by like what my parents liked. Cause I love my parents, but they have terrible taste in music.
Yeah.
But it was like, here, this is for you. You should check this out. And so, yeah, like a lot of the Southern California punk scene, like third wave punk stuff, I was really, really into. At the same time, though, I still did love musicals. So like storytelling in music. I mean, Weird Al is a master of it. Obviously, like when he writes his own stuff, he's incredible at storytelling. But yeah, like that was always really interesting for me. So I just, tried starting a band in high school. No one was interested. Found some people to finally play with in college, and just went out from there. And we went through bunch of personnel changes. But the reason I mentioned Shannon and the Hot Topic and the Vagrant Records sampler CD is pretty recently our longtime bassist Davey moved back to Philadelphia, which we'll miss him. He's still a legend. And we're like, well, shit, what are we going to do? Because we need a bassist at least as good as the best musician I've ever met in my life. Man, I don't know. Put up a thing on Craigslist. And then a couple weeks later, I got an email from this guy. I was like, hey, I'm interested in your outfit. I really like what you're doing. I'm a studio player, but, I'm pretty well known in Los Angeles. And I messaged you on Facebook, but I didn't hear back. So I'm trying you here on Gmail. I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, I don't check. Facebook's the devil. Thanks for double checking there. And it turns out that this guy was on that sample CD. Like he was one of the bassists for the Vagrant Records sampler CD that I bought in 1999. 2000. Another Year in the Streets, Vagrant Records sampler. He's Nick Nafasi from Automatic 7. So like this insane moment of full circleness where one of the people who's responsible for me starting to think of music as something that I could do for myself and find my own connection to it. Like he hits me up 21 years later. It's like, hey, I like what you're doing. Maybe we should do stuff together. I'm like, holy shit, dude. Yes. Yes. he's a sweetheart. He's an excellent bassist, and I don't know. It's just one of those insane moments of rhyming. Like that history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. I don't know. But this happened recently, so I'm still kind of buzzing about it.
That's amazing. That's really, really cool. So I guess, by the sounds of things, punk hit you around the same time that it hits a lot of people.
Yeah.
Which is to say, like, around puberty, kind of, right? Like,
yeah,
Gordon Lightfoot's not going to scratch that itch.
Oh, hell no. No. Not unless, like, Me First and the Gimme Gimmes cover it.
Yeah, right.
But what is it? No, punk for angry, bored suburban kids is a gateway to self-expression and identity. And, like, it helped me develop that sort of political awareness and social awareness, and so I'll always credit it for that as well. But yeah, like, when you're 13 and furious, there's no better outlet than good punk rock. And I mean, like, yeah, it was punk, and there was a lot of emo, because, you know, emo was all the rage at that point. Like, I was really into Saves the Day because they covered a lot of ground.
Yep.
One of the Vagrant bands. I mean, Face to Face early on was my favorite punk band. God, they hold up so well. They're so consistent. But I remember, like Shannon mentioned, I want to say I came back a year or two later and she mentioned Against Me, and I listened to it. I was like, this is kind of weird. I don't think so. And then, like, 8 years later, oh shit, no, Against Me is
really good. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Sure. So I really missed out on getting ahead of that curve. Cause yeah, people like, I think I sound, when I sing, I think I sound a little like Laura Jane Grace, a little bit.
I can see it.
Yeah. But mostly it's just like, man, I love Against Me so goddamn much. They're so good. But yeah, with the punk rock, there was that sort of, all right, well, punk was the way in. That's how I and many other people discovered that, yeah, music can be for you, but storytelling continued to be what I was most interested in good songs. And no one is better at short stories than John Sampson of the Weakerthans. Like, okay,
that is a wonderful segue, by the way. I was winding up for a segue, and you knocked it out of the park.
Give me 10 minutes, and then I'll eventually segue to what we're doing.
No, that's fabulous. And I have to tell you, I was aware of the Weakerthans connection to Propaganda, which is another Canadian band, one of my favorites. And so I assumed, having not heard the Weakerthans, I assumed that I was walking into a punk rock experience. And then I started listening to it today, and I remarked to my fiance, this has about as much to do with Propaganda as City and Color has to do with Alexis on Fire.
Nah, I don't know the first one, but I know the second one. Sorry.
That's okay. City and Color is Dallas Green's solo outfit. The guy from Alexis on Fire, which is much more kind of folk-based kind of acoustic-y type stuff.
Yeah, well, have you heard Chuck Reagan's solo stuff? It's folk, and it's really good.
There's a lot of
Hot
stuff.
Water Fire. Yeah,
there's a lot of stuff out there that I was surprised. Like, I've always liked that kind of. I was an avid collector of, like, the Punk Goes acoustic collections when I was younger, stuff like that. And you hear Poison the Well do something acoustic; it's really weird. But that I was not expecting this coming in. So let's talk about this record first of all. Tell us the record you brought for us today. And give us a little bit about the record and the band.
Okay, so the Weakerthans, Left and Leaving, often praised as one of the finest pieces of indie rock Canada has ever produced. Certainly one of the best. I mean, certainly one of the best of Canada's. And it's absolutely my favorite piece of music. I think it was 2001 that they put it out. So super formative moment for me. I was in high school, and I had I was in this creative arts high school called OSHA, Orange County High School of the Arts, and I was in the songwriting class. And this guy Lon, who was probably in his mid to late 20s, but like cool. Holy shit, Lon Kuntz! I know you're out there still just being cool. Lon Kuntz is the coolest. Like, he had cool hair and sideburns and like buttons on his denim jacket. He's just like, just a cool,
just cool. Yeah.
Just a cool dude who played in bands, wrote music, just someone that was so helpful for me to meet as a shitty teenager and be like, this is like, I want to listen to good stuff and not just be like like that was the worst thing that people could call you back in middle school or high school. You're a poser.
Oh,
you're just doing this thing because it's a scene and like, and certainly those people are out there. But like
to this day.
Yeah. But Lon was like, here, man, like listen to good music because it's good, not because it's like part of any particular scene. And he had a tape of Weakerthans Left and Leaving, like the kind you actually had to physically put into and pull out of a tape player.
Ooh.
Yeah, old school. And it would cut off.
We're dating ourselves with that one.
Oh, sure. Look, I'm 36 years old. I forget how old I am sometimes, but then you have a kid and you're in for office and you get a job with the state and we're looking at housing and oh my God, it's just such a nightmare. Don't get old. But yeah, like he let me borrow this tape, which had Weakerthans Left and Leaving on it. And it would like cut off in the middle because the side A was only so long.
Oh yeah.
Like one of the songs, I still like feel it stop when I listen to it on any other medium because like, I don't even know what happened to that tape. I must have returned it. But like, it was his favorite tape. And he was like, you got to check these guys out, giving music to his students. And like, there's nothing cooler than that.
Agreed.
Yeah. And it's, if I had to put like a fine point on it, I would call it like a up-tempo folk indie rock. It's not punk, but there are some like really good driving beats on there. But like it starts off with this really gentle, like Weakerthans had existed as a trio before that. They put out a CD which is good. It's called Fallow, which as a first CD is a really intelligent name as your first release. But they'd existed as a trio, and then Left and Leaving is when they picked up their guitarist, who would also be their manager, Steven. And the album starts with this gentle guitar lick that is just so small and perfect. It's like a little bird in the morning. And the song, it opens up and it's about a sad garage sale of the heart. Yeah. Because like every Weakerthans song is ostensibly about an actual concrete thing that you can find in the world, but also all of the depth and emotion hidden inside that thing. The garage sale, like he's, listing like all the different things that he's got. And then cordless razor, that my father bought when I turned 17, puke grain sofa, and the outline to a complicated dream of dignity. It's like, what? Yeah. So like, lyrically, John Sampson is the master that I've constantly compared myself to, and I will never ever do better than John Sampson. Because like all of his songs are little short stories. And he finds the ways to say the fewest amount of words that mean the most. I think I called it like emotional judo, where, and I'm completely the opposite. Like I have to say in my own music and storytelling, like I don't stop talking. Like I clearly just on this podcast, dude, like I can go on for fucking forever. And I don't have that gift of the tiny little, the fewest words that just flips meaning so hard and makes you go, oh my God, that hurts. It hurts, but it's so good. Yeah. 11 tracks. I can't talk it up enough. There's please, good.
The lyrical content I wanted to speak to, because I think you're absolutely right. Like one of the things that struck me about this, aside from the beginning of Everything Must Go, which, like I said, I was surprised. I was anticipating what I got from, I believe, the second track, Aside, which immediately launches into something a little bit more
Yeah.
like sort of rock, you know, which is what I anticipated.
It's one of their most popular songs, or at least their most famous, because it's what was it? It's the opening of the credit sequence of the movie The Wedding Crashers.
That's where, yeah,
like that has a really good soundtrack, but it's sitting there seeing this okay comedy in 2005, I think. Like when it jumped into literally my favorite song ever, I like just gasped and like slapped my friend in the chest, like, holy shit, it's the fucking Weakerthans. And I was like, good for them. Oh my God, getting like a major Hollywood comedy. Like that's so awesome.
Especially when their stuff, as you said, like they're very lyrically sophisticated and
very, yes.
One of the nice things about the Weakerthans, again, that I wasn't expecting, but I was very pleasantly surprised, is I have found some very interesting and at times exceptional songwriting in sort of the emo adjacent subgenres in the past. Because when I read some of these lyrics, I'm like, wow, this is pretty profound. Trouble is, I often with a lot of those bands either can't understand what is being said because it's screamo, or else I can understand it, but there's only so much of it that I can take because they have the emo voice.
Yeah.
And
that's a really good point.
And John skirts the edges of it because he definitely does. Like he does that hard R thing that certain singers will do, rather than, because like as a singer, I was brought up to understand that like everybody sounds vaguely British when they sing because you soften your R's, you soften your, like I'm preaching to the choir and saying this. What he does is he sings really, really phonetically. And so it kind of skirts that emo sort of sentiment without going all the way into it. And I was surprised and pleased that I enjoy, because I clocked it immediately. I was like, okay, I need to hear him sing louder before I decide whether I like this or not. And he didn't change how he sang. And I wanted to ask you about that because I noticed that he doesn't push the way a lot of, at least not on this record, he doesn't push the way a lot of vocalists in this kind of band do.
Yeah, his highest note is I'm leaving on this broken fence between past and present tense. That's as high as he goes.
Yeah.
No, like somebody mentioned once he has like kind of a Clem snide earnestness, and I guess like I had never thought about it until you said that just now. Where he sings very clearly that the point is the impact that he's going to make with his singing is going to be in his lyrics. But I think what I hear when I listen to John K. Samson sing is your friend sitting down next to you and playing you a song. There's an accessibility, there's an earnestness, there's an honesty, and a complete lack of pretense. Like one of his tracks, The Reasons on the one that followed Left and Leaving Reconstruction Site, the first two, the beginning of the song is, well, I don't know how to sing, I can barely play this thing. But you tell me not to mind, and you tell me to fuck off when I need somebody to. It's like he's a flawed, imperfect, and intellectually he's a genius, but physically he is not imposing at all. And I've got two John Samson stories, and I want to bust this one out here. I, as a college student, I wrote for this art magazine, and the only benefit to it, because they didn't pay me and I did so much work, but the only benefit to it was that I occasionally got to interview artists and musicians that I liked. And the Weakerthans came to town, and I managed to finagle an interview with literally my artistic hero. Like,
that's amazing.
Yeah. And sit down across from him. And it went so badly because I was just consumed with, oh my God, I'm meeting my hero. You see that Chris Farley thing where he's meeting Paul McCartney. He's like, Paul McCartney right over here.
Yeah.
Same, like I'm just having that. My friend that was able to come with, she's just sitting there just sort of giggling, watching me, just like, oh, you fucking idiot. I got to meet my hero. I walk in, I'm like, hi, John, I'm Mike. It's so nice to meet you. and he gave me the absolute worst handshake I've ever experienced from any person in my life.
Oh no.
And that's like it's I had built this guy up in my head so much to just like meet a human being and like, oh yeah, there's going to be things that you're like that you'll notice because he's a person. Treat him like a person. Like that was a real shock. But it's like, thankfully, he is also just this confounding genius. So and honestly, I might have just been so consumed with everything. Maybe I went in poorly from some weird angle. I don't know. I was 22 or so. And that's all
reason enough, really. Yeah. Like,
sure. But yeah, I that is something I remember of like John Sampson gave me a bad handshake in, I want to say October of 2002 or no, 2004, whatever. Either way, when it came to, well, they don't come to Los Angeles all that often, but
no, I guess they wouldn't.
Yeah. But yeah, genius. I'm gonna keep geeking out on this guy. Genius.
So, I mean, we've talked a little bit about what makes this record great and you know, your experience the first time you've heard it, and obviously you actually preempted one of my later questions, which is to say, would you ever want to meet the guy that wrote this music?
Yes, I would, and I still would again.
I was gonna say, would you want to do this again? You know, with your years of that, you know, the intervening 15 years of you being a musician and maybe having some more to talk about or some more to relate to one another on.
I think so. Yeah, no, I think that one was hard for me just because it literally was my hero, and I'm from Los Angeles, and I see people that I admire. I'm from Orange County, but I live in Los Angeles, and I've gotten better at meeting people that I admire. A few days ago, I just celebrated my 8th wedding anniversary, and we went to thank you very much. Yeah. We went to this incredible place in Encino called Pasta Bar, and it's this tiny little shop, and it's got, it's like one of those speakeasy type things where you have to know what you're looking for. One of the most expensive meals I've ever had. One of the best meals I've ever had. And sitting 2 seats down from me is Tom Segura.
Oh shit.
Standing comedian extraordinaire Tom Segura, one of the best deadpan comics out there. And I was like, shit, like Becky, my wife Becky, and I both love his comedy. Like when we go for, you know, super duper long drives, road trips, like we'll go through a few comics, Kyle Kinane, Patton Oswalt, and Tom Segura's on that list for sure. And and you know, giving it a minute, you know, when he gets to the bathroom, waiting outside the bathroom, I'm like, hey, Tom, right? It's like, yeah. I'm like, hey, man, I'm just a huge fan. I really love your work. I can't wait to see what you do next. Oh, thank you so much. So like, it's getting that sort of development. I sent him a drink later, and he was a total gentleman. He's like, you know, thanks so much for the drink. You know, really appreciate your support. I'm excited to go on tour again. So we'll have to have you out. Totally nice guy. Completely different story when you're 22 and seeing the person that basically almost single-handedly talked me into writing my own lyrics, like because there's a bunch of people that a lot of musicians that I liked that convinced me as a teen that like, no, pick up a guitar, make something interesting. But like John Sampson was the guy to say, you can tell stories and you can tell huge stories. Emotion and like nuance and subtlety can just be as impactful as just screaming. Because like, you know, coming from punk rock, like and punk rock as like this guarded social thing where these friends are like keeping it away from me, like there is an anger component to it. So like you listen, and punk can be one note in that sort of fuck authority, Rage Against the Machine kind of thing. But John Sampson tells human stories. Like he tells, like he's got one on his solo album, his first solo album, The Last, no, it's not The Last Stand. What the hell is that one called? About a teacher who is in love with the principal, but the principal, don't love him no more. And like, he doesn't say, I am a teacher and I love you. So it's like, I'm the first one in again with the quiet in the window growing snow. When I hear the furnace rouse itself from its slumber, somehow suddenly I know, as my eye stops on one curled up in my lesson plan, that I'm just your little ampersand. So like we get the only clue of his profession, right, is lesson plan. And then we immediately turn over to, I am just your little ampersand.
Which is just a wonderful line.
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. And listeners at home can't see, but I have a gigantic ampersand tattooed on my chest.
I was just about to ask whether there was a connection to that, because I have seen that photo before of your tattoo. So.
And at this point, I genuinely can't remember if the song or the tattoo predates, like which one came first. Because it's been a while, but there's a lot of
either way, man. Like that does signify a pretty profound connection. There's definitely,
and it's one of two. No, I have 3 tattoos now. Fuck, I forgot about my 3rd tattoo. I have 3 tattoos. One for my wife, that's the ampersand. I got an exclamation point for my daughter, and then I've got a series of symbols from the best book ever, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clark, Hugo Award winning 2004. That one's for me. But yeah, sorry, John. Trying to think on. Like he tells human stories, but sometimes they're on like almost a superhuman or neighborhood or city scale. Like my favorite first line is in Left and Leaving, the title track. Mm-hmm. My city's still breathing, but barely. It's true. Through buildings gone missing like teeth. Like, oof. Just like this perfect like urban decay. He's from Winnipeg, which I've never been, but I understand it's not exactly a city on the rise. He's got a song on Reconstruction site called One Great City, which is their slogan. The city's tourism slogan. And it is about like the chorus is literally, I hate Winnipeg.
I have heard that sentiment from, I have never been either. I just recently traveled most of the way across the country for the first time. But I started in Alberta, so I missed Manitoba altogether. But I have heard that about Winnipeg. My father lived out that way in the 70s, and he said it's
all the provinces I
desolate.
know from. There's so much of Canadian geography I know because they all get mentioned in Weakerthans songs.
That's I don't know if you know this or not, but that's actually a prerequisite to be a Canadian musician. Is you absolutely have to include. I'm only half joking. On the radio up here, they are mandated to play a certain amount of Canadian content. Like the government says, you have to play X amount of Canadian bands, which I'm into.
Yeah, seriously.
But it gave rise to. I mean, obviously, you go all the way back to the much maligned Gordon Lightfoot, who is very famous for including, Canadian landmarks and stuff, but all the way up through the Tragically Hip made an entire career out of that. Can
we take a minute to talk about Come From Away?
Oh, yes, we can. I saw that a couple of years ago.
Holy shit.
Pretty good, huh?
That is so good. Yeah. I was on an Unpops podcast about like the best musicals, and I totally missed Come From Away at that point. It's on Apple Plus right now. Like a performance of Come From Away is on Apple Plus right now. It's about, for those not in the know, it's about the city called Gander on the coast of Newfoundland, which used to be like the halfway point for people traveling when jet engines weren't yet a thing and propeller engines could only get people from Europe to the extreme East Coast before traveling off to the rest of North America. Like they had this big airport built up to support all those connecting flights. And it sort of fell by the wayside when jet engines got better. But on September 11th, 2001, all of the planes that were destined for a majority of like the Eastern seaboard got redirected to this town. Like when American airspace closed, everybody got sent to Gander. And the musical is about the town and the people on the plane people, like trying to figure out what's happened, and holy shit, thousands of people are going to be coming to our town, and we have to accommodate them.
Yeah.
And it's one of the funniest musicals I've ever seen. I didn't actually see the performance until recently because the music is so good that like, and it's such good storytelling. about, people and humankind and community. And it's as an expression of ultimately Canadian awesomeness that it's hard to argue with. It really should have. I think it won best musical that year that it was out.
I think it may have. I am not a musical guy as a general rule.
Oh man.
My interest in music trends very, very apart from musicals as a general rule. I blame it on Andrew Lloyd Webber. Man, I saw Phantom one too many times, and I just fucking hate musicals now.
No.
But Come From Away is on a very short list of musicals that I was just absolutely blown away by. Once is on that list.
Once is terrific.
And obviously Hamilton was very good and stuff like that.
Go see Assassins.
Yeah.
Get that Stephen Sondheim, man. Stephen Sondheim's a genius, and I think Assassins is his best work.
My fiance is a big musical fan. The guys I do composers with are both huge musical fans. They keep trying to bring me around on it. We've done a bunch on specials and stuff. We did Little Shop and a couple of other things.
Oh man, Alan Menken, he did this stuff for
Menken is amazing. Menken is
incredible.
Menken is fucking amazing. I just, outside of the Disney stuff, I'm just like, musicals. But I will say, Come From Away.
There's a lot of bad musicals for sure. Like in the Andrew Lloyd Webber, put like stage for the sake of melodrama. Like it's just, no, come on, man. Cats is ultimately the stupidest thing that's ever happened to humanity.
So I heard. I haven't seen it yet.
Don't. The music is dumb. The story is profoundly stupid. And then the filmed adaptation is the biggest budget disaster I've ever seen in my life. It
looked like a fever dream, honestly.
Garbage from start to finish. Yeah. If that's your yardstick for musicals, then there really isn't. There's nowhere so much lower more. There's to go. So much more. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. It's like when people are like, well, I'm not all that interested in folk music or indie rock. And it's like, well, friend, have you heard of the Weakerthans? Boom.
This is God damn, your segues are just A+ material. That's incredible. You want this job? But anyway, it's, I'm really glad that you brought this to me, because there is one of the things that I value most in music, because I'm like a singer-songwriter guy, not nearly to the level of success that you and the thousands have achieved, certainly, but I've done this for a really long time, and I've always been drawn to that. I had a similar experience with a musical hero of mine that you described, similar to what you described, and it's, music is at the heart of a lot of my life and what I do, but for me, it's the lyrics that really, really count. If the lyrics are good and I can kind of make an acoustic version out of your song, I'm going to love your songs. Part of the reason that I love so much of what you guys do, because it's that lyrical content. And this is segueing into a question, but that lyrical content, there is and speaking here specifically about the Weakerthans, John's lyrical content is intimate. There's an intimacy to it. You mentioned earlier. I loved what you mentioned earlier about it feeling like your buddy sitting on the couch next to you playing you a song they'd just written, because there's a closeness to it, and it makes me understand. It kind of makes me understand like all of the emo adjacent stuff to some degree, because if you're of the right age, this stuff will speak directly to you as though it was written for you or about you.
Yeah. But I think like that music, John's music, has remained timeless.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way that like early November or Starting Line, like you listen to it, it's like that is 2001 for sure. That's 2001. Mm-hmm. Like that. Like I don't know. No, you can't. Not everybody can maintain 20 years of yearning. Full contact yearning.
Yeah.
But like, you can absolutely like, I don't know that I don't see that big a difference between the depth of emotion in a Samson song and the depth of emotion in early November in terms of like how many feelings are being felt in a given moment. It's just that I hate to say it feels elitist, but it's so much more sophisticated.
No, I agree with you. It's poetry. Like I went to school for literature, and which I only bring up because I know it pisses off Aaron and Jay, my co-hosts. But I in listening to this, I'm like, no, this is a lot more sophisticated than I would then I would expect, because again, I walked into this expecting kind of a balls to the wall punk rock album. And while that's not to say that there isn't such a thing as sophisticated punk lyrics, because there absolutely are.
Oh yeah.
I wasn't expecting something this layered. And the fact that it was that intimate, really, it's part of the reason that I walked away from the listening experience having enjoyed it so much, because there's meat and potatoes to those lyrics. There's real, something you can really sink your teeth into.
There's meat and potato, but like the meat is like a Wagyu Denver cut, $70 a pound, with like served with like a brown butter, and like maybe like just like a little tiny, like a drop, no more than a drop of like truffle oil, but like the good white truffle oil, and then you get that hot plate, served on a nice hot plate, and then like the potatoes are like, maybe we'll do like a Dutch baby gold thing, but then you air fry it, and you air fry it with I would say sure, meat and potatoes, but also let's get some Brussels sprouts in there. We're gonna air fry the Brussels sprouts, get some get a nice balsamic glaze with the Brussels sprouts, a little gorgonzola cheese there, but the gorgonzola cheese has to go in towards the end of things. Because otherwise you don't want to scorch the cheese. You want it to get that nice Maillard effect, nice and brown. I don't even know if I'm saying Maillard correctly. Maillard, who knows? But like really sophisticated meat and potatoes.
I couldn't agree more. I'm curious whether you're also a chef.
Yes,
because you need to be good at one thing.
Enthusiast.
Okay, you need to be good at fewer things. All right, just for my own edification. Holy shit.
Okay, I mean, I'll get right on that. Let me go bash my head against the door a couple of times here,
right?
And lose all of my. I don't know. What can I afford to lose? I don't know. We're all on a journey, man. We got to. With our greatest resource is our own interests and curiosities.
So, with that in mind, to what extent has your journey? Obviously, your journey's been pretty profoundly influenced by this band and this record.
Yeah,
I'm curious, because you are the first, the second sort of. I don't want to say mainstream musician. I had like a percussion. I had like a classical percussionist. I had like a classical percussionist on, which is not the same thing as what you do. So you are the second sort of musician that I've had on the show.
Okay.
And I'm curious to what extent this band has influenced you as a musician. And I feel like I already know the answer, but I'd love to hear you extrapolate a little bit on that.
Yeah. I get like. The Weakerthans was the first time that I heard like real storytelling that appealed beyond turbo punk rock volume or the outright comedy of Weird Al. Mm-hmm. Like there wasn't a hook to the Weakerthans. It's just like, hey, we're this really good music. We have these really great lyrics. We have these stories to tell. And it stands on its own. It doesn't need to be punk rock. It doesn't need to be funny. Like it is its own self-assured, like it is a great handshake. It walks into a room and says, hello, this is who I am. I have this to say. I will say it at this volume. If you pay attention to me, awesome, because we can really have a conversation. If so, and if not, I won't be sad. It's confident in a way that I needed confidence as a high school student. Like I was the kind of person that was constantly trying to save all my friends, because I went to an arts high school, and so many people around me had eating disorders or problems at home. It's a high school. Everybody's fucked up. And like I had this thing where it's like I wanted to rescue each of them and do everything I could. And and that made me not confident in the sense that like I already wasn't confident, and I'm going in like, all right, well now it's my responsibility to fix these other people, which you can't fucking do. But the Weakerthans, at the same time, like as I'm discovering, I think I want to play music. I think like I really can get a lot out of this. There was the first example I saw of a self-contained, self-possessed thing that wasn't dependent on genre to make an impact. And you know, when you're in high school, you only know so much good stuff. You know, you haven't been exposed to everything. And that, yeah, I guess that's really what it boils down to. Is it was the first self-possessed piece of music that I'd heard that didn't borrow deeply from something else in order to be what it was. And like, maybe that's not entirely fair, because I'd heard the Ramones, and the Ramones are fucking rad. And the Ramones, you know, I guess they borrowed from MC5. You know, everybody borrows from James Brown. There are all these long lines of debt. But no, like the Weakerthans, Left and Leaving, John K. Samson. That was the first time I heard a piece of music that said, like, be your own person, right? Tell your own stories. Mm-hmm. Like you may not feel like the most important person in the world, you know, but there's so much tucked up inside the stuff that we miss. Like I did a photography project in college that was like shot like pictures of like little details, and then like I found a candy wrapper or something like that, and then like under all the photos, I thought it was so brilliant. I'm the smartest person ever. I put a little caption that was like, "This is the piece of evidence that will incriminate a killer," and like it's shot of like some soap. This is the soap that will slaughter a virus. Like all these things, like there's power in stuff that you miss. Like that, if you overlook something, it has the potential to really to get. I mean, it's the Rebel Alliance theory, you know, like the stuff that you don't pay attention to because you don't pay attention to it, it gives it power, you know. And I say that as a politician, you know, appealing to folks that have been forgotten or counted out of conversations, you know, people of color, you know, increasingly young people, the adult children of suburban homeowners. You know, we are not making the decisions that get made in government do not actually account for people of color, the adult children of the suburban homeowner, like immigrants, seniors on fixed incomes. Like those people tend to get ignored, or worse, they get tokenized. And where the hell was I going with this?
You were speaking to the point of things that are missed that can be tremendously important.
Yeah. And it goes back to that idea of like John Samson tells a complete story in like 40 words. You know, there's stuff like, he's got a song about a bus driver, and the bus driver, he's sitting up front, you know, worrying about getting people where they need to go. But every other hour he passes the house where you told me where you had to go. And I wonder if the landlord has fixed the crack that I stared at instead of staring back at you. You know,
it's very evocative. It's very visual music.
Yes.
And they're very visual lyrics.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, it really paints a picture, and in a way that, you know, paints a picture with your words is a cliche, but like, I really feel as though there are certain songwriters that I feel like evoke similar sentiments, but there's a specificity to what John's doing with his lyrics that is painting a very specific, almost like a TV episode picture, as opposed to this is generally what you should be seeing. Because like you look at a guy like one of my heroes is Townes Van Zandt, right? And you listen to a song like Poncho and Lefty. That's a myth. That's a grand traditional myth being told writ large on the sky. This is some guy in a room somewhere dealing with something very profound, you know, staring at a crack in the wall rather than looking back at his partner or whatever.
Yeah, but like, so relatable, like
incredibly relatable. Yes.
Yeah, it's like is that phrase going around right now, especially like in times of COVID, like be nice, everybody's going through something.
Yeah,
like all of John's music is just an argument for we're all going through something, and that something is huge. And just because we don't react to it in a big way does not make the feelings any smaller.
And the reaction, and I think your point is well taken in his lyrical content, the reaction is small. One of the things that kind of kept me out of, and I hate to keep like referencing emo because this really isn't that, but But one of the things that kept me out of the contemporaries of this band, because this record came out in 2000, which was the rise of Dashboard Confessional and that ilk of music, which I can handle in doses.
There's some good stuff in there. Get Up Kids, I think, probably will hold up if I actually revisited it.
Yeah, there's a bunch of stuff that ages well from that era, but the lyrics tend to be, like I think of like that Fall Out Boy line, I'm just a notch in your bedpost and you're just a line in a song. It's a cool line, but it's like it has that teenage angst behind it. It's got that like, fuck you, because you wouldn't sleep with me or you did or whatever. Whereas what's being written here is much more, it's almost like that guy all grown up. You know what I mean? In a way where it's like there's a much more adult sentiment to it. There's much less of that teenaged kind of like, again, the angst and the angst is there, but it's more refined. It's more seasoned.
Yeah, I guess it's quieted down. When you get your feelings hurt, you get a punch, your immediate reaction is, oh, fuck you, I'm going to throw that punch right back. But given enough time away from having been punched, it boils down to that sort of like simmering resentment. You get your heart broken. Like at first it's like just tears and depression. Like, oh my God. Like I remember when I had to break up with somebody that I did not want to break up with. And I was extremely sad because I knew that like I wasn't happy in this relationship and she was kind and treated me well, but I wasn't happy and I knew it wasn't going to evolve past that point where it was. And it's like, I need more out of life than this. And like, just that the first 2 weeks after that breakup, just sitting there, just depressed, trying to play Assassin's Creed to take my mind off of things. And then realizing a week into it, I don't think I like this game. Oh, all right. Yeah. That it cools and sort of refines into that sort of like, yeah, it's a bittersweet thing. And like, if you have enough perspective and, oh God, maybe that's it. Maybe that's just John Samson is just a master of perspective and like, when I say like, he does the emotional judo thing where where I would use, a paragraph, he makes like a 2-clause sentence and just like, idea A is a beautiful thing, comma, and it's so terrible that it's killing me. It's like, fuck, man. Like just the perspective and I'll broaden that out as well. Let's say like his perspective is interesting because he looks at things that people don't think about, like a sad teacher, or God, he's got the best line in any song anywhere that I've ever heard. He's got this song. I can't remember the name of the song. It might be Eastern Standard Time, but it's about this guy who's just dashing around, trying to keep up appearances. My heart pumping pure minibar. Like he's trying to get to the big board meeting and make his case. And he bursts into the room and he sits down. My chair once, straighten my tie and say, what's the damage? And the pause feels like an extra year of high school. Oh man, we felt that. It's, or if we haven't felt that, we know what it's like of just like all these people sitting, just staring like, oh my God, well, CEO takes me aside. I'm down 12 points and they're selling. By the time the market opens in Tokyo, I'll be worthless. It's like, fuck,
it's very existential. It's very existential. And I think it appeals.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I have to harp on the rest of that song, which is not on Left and Leaving, but this whole song is, he's telling the story of, he just got to town. He's trying to get his shit together, present himself at the board meeting. He gets canned at the board meeting. And then the breakdown at the end is, so what I'm trying to say, what I'm asking is, I know we haven't talked in a while, but can you come get me? And you realize he's been telling someone that he knew a long time ago over the phone, I just lost my job and I have literally nowhere else to go.
Wow.
It's just like, can you come get me? It's like, oh my God, it's so small and it's so perfect and it hurts. It hurts so good. It hurts so good.
When it hurts that good, and it's hard to say this about a favorite record because I know that it's a difficult question to answer when you're talking about something that is a favorite. But are there times or situations or scenarios where you feel compelled to revisit this record, even though it hurts?
Every time it rains. Every time. I'm from Southern California. We do not get rain around here. Every time it's rainy, I want to hear the first bar from Everything Must Go. Every time. Like, it's just it's the perfect rain music. Like, shit. And even if I moved to Vancouver, Seattle, places it just rains constantly, I would still operate under that same mentality of just, yeah, like it has helped me through some of the worst moments in my life. It's given me that sort of calm and clarity and acceptance. Like when I say it sounds like somebody sitting down and singing to you, like there is a connection there and there's a comfort in that connection. And a personable thing based on who we are as people and not members of this tribe or that tribe or you know, this movement or that movement. And not to say that there's not huge political themes in the Weakerthans songs, because there absolutely are. Oh, what force on earth could be weaker than the feeble strength of one is from Solidarity Forever, which I didn't know. Like, even after I was deep in the Democratic Socialists of America, like I hadn't actually heard anybody sing Solidarity Forever. Like I knew it was a reference to a song somewhere. But like, when I finally, like, I went to a DSA march, you know, in response to the disastrous previous American presidency, and the DSA folks started singing that, I'm like, oh my God, this whole time, it was a reference to the great, we don't hear Union songs. Like, America really abandoned its unionist roots. You know, in the 60s or so 70s. But I think we're coming back to it just out of necessity. And like track 4, Left and Leaving, is Pamphleteer. It's about a dude just hanging out on Albert Street, just handing out pamphlets to people who are not interested in what he's trying to promote. You know, and I certainly have been there as an activist and a politician. Like, dude's trying to make change in his community. He's trying to make change in himself, because it's like, contemplate my next communique, the rhetoric and treason, and saying that I miss you, and saying, hey, well, maybe you should stay. You know, and then he sings, oh, what force on earth could be weaker than the feeble strength of one, like me, remembering the way it could have been. It's like the inversion of that Solidarity Forever song, now that I know what it's like, and that's the other thing is, like, any truly profoundly perfect piece of art, its meaning will change over time. Like for me, I didn't know that was a reference to Solidarity Forever. I thought it was just a really fucking cool ass line. And then I hear, you know, much later on, like, oh, this has been his politics from the beginning. And when I met him, I made the point of, like, yeah, it seems like you got a lot of political stuff in your songs, huh, Mr. Sampson? You're like, yeah, generally left equals good. Like, okay. I am bad at interviewing you, my hero.
Hey, listen, this is not an easy job, right? Like,
well, I've interviewed people. I admire, but again, like 22, green. I feel like I'm getting away with something, and the way when I wrote about it for my article, I make the point of the interview is not a success. If you ever meet your hero, don't tape record it. You will sound like an idiot. You know, just know that going in. You know, trying to provide some sort of wisdom for any readers of the Ism Quarterly in 2005.
And speaking of wisdom, I'm going to be putting up a link to this whole record, and I included a little bit of, I believe I included a little bit of a side at the beginning of this recording, which I do at the beginning of all these recordings, just to kind of prep the listeners. But if they like this, if they listen to the Weakerthans, Left and Leaving, and they dig it, what else can you suggest that it would be along a similar vein?
Oh God, they're so their own thing.
I know, that's why this is a tough question.
Yeah, I've heard them compared to Clem Snide. I might compare them to Tokyo Police Club if Tokyo Police Club took a day off instead of being all amped up on whatever it is that they're amped up on all the time. They're really good, but it just tonally, I don't know, man. Nick Drake. There's an immediacy to Nick Drake's music that I think is pretty well reflected, because I mean that's good folk rock, or I'm sorry, it's not even folk rock. Nick Drake is good folk. But I mean, if you are interested in the snippet that you heard in Aside, just go through the catalog. Left and Leaving is a perfect album. When they played live, do you know that there's that child's toy that's like a tube with like little nubblies on it, and if you swing it around in a circle, it makes a whoo.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Sure, yeah.
In Elegy for Elsabet, track 8, they use one of those things for a solo, and then Steven, the guitarist, would do that live.
I was wondering what that was.
That was it a whirly gig? I don't know what the fuck those are called.
But yeah,
I think
that's what it is. Yeah.
Left and just listen to Left and Leaving start to finish, then go to Reconstruction Site, which is the following, the follow-up to that. Then do Reunion Tour. Go in order. If you feel like you might like a little bit more of an edge, then backtrack to their first album, Fallow, which is good, but still very unrefined. Like Left and Leaving is when all the pieces came together perfectly. They get a little bit more experimental with Reunion Tour. And God, they broke up 8 years before anybody like noticed.
Yeah, I noticed they do not have a big discography.
No, I think there are 4 albums and then a live album, which is also very good. And then John Samson's put out 2 solo albums by himself. Naturally, Provincial, I believe, is his first one, which is incredible. It's got one of his better songs on there. The follow-up to that, Winter Wheat, is much more experimental and folky and much less driving and a lot weirder. So I don't connect as much to that particular one, but I mean, like, this is music that I can listen to it every day, and I did indeed, like in my CD wallets, because again, dating myself, like that's what I had. It was the first CD in my CD wallet for over a decade. And like, yeah, they broke up 8 years before the drummer was like, yeah, I guess it's worth saying the Weakerthans broken up, so thanks everybody. And then John put out another album like a little while after that. But I mean, like, their music is so compulsively re-listenable that I didn't notice that, like, 4 albums in 10 years, and then another few years thereafter, 2015 is when their drummer was like, yeah, so no more Weekend. I was like, fuck, I didn't notice that they stopped making music, because it's still so good and re-listenable and alive and relevant and timeless. It's very good, is what I'm saying.
I mean, I couldn't think of I should be so lucky that someone should say something half that nice about my music one day once I stop making things.
We shouldn't, I mean, let's not compare ourselves to the best in the world at what they do.
True.
It's just bad for you.
That's true.
And in fact, here, because it does seem like a bit of a wind down. My other story is, it must have been, I can't remember quite when John Samson's solo albums started coming out. But I noticed somewhere that it was like, you can correspond with John Samson. I was like, fuck, okay, I'll do that. And I hand wrote a letter to John Samson, just be like, I interviewed you once, and I was so starstruck that I couldn't get my shit together, but I wanted to let you know that I just released my first album. This is like would have been a little after 2011 because what we're just really excited to be here is like 2011.
Mhm.
And I just wanted to say thank you. Like you, John Sampson, are a cornerstone of my identity as a musician. You're like the first person I think about. Like, how would John say this? It's I don't want to geek out too hard, or I genuinely can't remember what I said, but like the point of it is like, thank you for what you do. Thank you for what you did. And I'm so excited to see whatever you do next.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote me back. And he wrote me back this letter right here. He
Oh,
typed
wow.
it himself.
This is for the listeners at home. Danger has this in a frame.
Yeah, it's framed.
Framed this
directly next to my bedside. Again, this really matters, and I'll read it for you. October 8th, 2012. Dear Mike, thanks very much for your kind letter. I really appreciate your generous words. There's a typo in generous. Thanks also for sending your music and sharing it with me. Hope you keep writing and making things, and that our paths cross sometime soon. Very best wishes, John K. Sampson, Winnipeg. Signature. P.S. Apologies for the typos. This typewriting business takes some getting used to.
Isn't that what? That's really nice.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Perfect, evocative, and deeply kind. And yeah, I like it matters so much to me that this person I admire is also a very good person.
That makes all the difference. There's nothing worse.
It makes a lot of difference. Yeah, no, I've definitely met people whose work I admire, and then I'm like, oh, you might be a prick. And honestly, like I haven't behaved well to some people in the past, like we've all been dicks in some way or another.
Sure.
But I mean, it's just humbling to have that. And I keep it next to my bed to be like, you can reach people in a way that like, it goes back to like one of my lines, like one of the more important lines in one of my songs. I keep coming back to it is, I write these words upon the water. Though the words vanish, the ripples reach shores I will never know. That line has appeared in 3 of my songs because it really matters to me. Like, we don't know how we're going to affect people.
Mm-hmm.
And if we're good and kind and we work hard and we care, like, you don't know how it's going to come back. And it might not come back, but it might improve somebody else's life somewhere that you just won't be aware of it. And that's kind of the human condition. Sure, it's nice, from an ego-driven place to get the kind of feedback that you want, and sort of live in that praise. If you can get it, awesome. But like staying humble and knowing that, like, yeah, the good you're putting out in the world, you might not see back in the way that you expect it. But yeah, man, there's a humility in the Weakerthans music. There's a humility in this letter. Like, thank you for your kind letter. I really appreciate your generous words. Like, it mattered to him that I wrote him this letter, and it matters to me that he made this incredible music and continues to do so. So in summation, no, I don't know who listeners could check out if they're interested in the Weakerthans. Just listen to the Weakerthans and John K. Sampson's solo projects.
And I will add to that, dear listeners, that you should also be listening to Danger's stuff with Countless Thousands, which is my attempt at a segue into asking you where interested parties can find all the dope shit that you guys are doing.
Love hearing it described as such. Thank you. Please go to patreon.com/countless-thousands to support our punk rock musical, which is really just my way of staying productive in unproductive times. It's very easy to get because I have a toddler. I just got a new job. We're all going to die. That's very distracting. But yeah, like we've been putting out music pretty consistently on the Patreon. We released Countless Thousands and The Triumph of Justice earlier this year in 2021 because we're like, fuck 2020. The album's ready, but we can't release this album in 2020. It has to be out of it.
A fresh start. Yeah,
fresh start. And it's very good. I mean, you can hear stories in that one. And we do cover Solidarity Forever on that album as well. Your Spotify's, your iTunes, countlessthousands.bandcamp.com if you want to buy directly from us. We'd appreciate it. But yeah, follow me on Twitter. I tweet about mostly left-wing politics stuff, a lot of housing stuff these days, because that's my universe. And then occasionally be like, also music. Yeah. And I should also mention, for all you locale souls, we are coming back. We're going to be playing a show again for the first time. Alex, it's been years.
That's so exciting.
3 years. So we've had an actual live band, because like we've played unpop stuff and it's been super cool. Or we've played like coffee shops or this, that, other thing as an acoustic situation. I did one show with another one of my musical heroes, Professor Elemental, who is a complete fucking sweetheart.
No shit. Okay.
Yeah, he came out.
There's a through line that you and I are going to have to talk about at some point in terms of this, because I think we know some of the same people. But anyway, please continue.
I'd be delighted. But yeah, good old Paul Albero, Professor Elemental. I played it's one of the craziest shows in a ballet studio in Highland Park, just by myself, like in my own set with my electric guitar, trying to make it work. Because I saw Ted Leo do it a couple of times. Oh, there's a good one, Ted Leo. If you like the Weakerthans, look up Ted Leo. He's a good storyteller. But yeah, we're going to be actually having a proper live band show. I want to throw out details about it. Whatever. If you're in Southern California, November 14th at the Brew Yard in Glendale, California. I can't believe I'm saying it, but the Nerd Rockers Ball is back, baby. I just have to book all the other acts for it.
That's amazing.
At least us. We can go for 3 hours if we have to.
That is amazing. I hope that someone can set up some kind of a streaming option for that, because the chances of me getting
that's a really good idea.
Toronto to LA, pandemic notwithstanding, is not going to fucking happen in this economy. I did it once. It was a very long trip. But with any luck, this sort of thing will be available. In the meantime, a ton of stuff that Danger and Co. have done is available. You're also on other podcasts. You do a lot of work with the Unpopular Opinion Network.
I do indeed.
You are not the only person from that network that has been on our stupid show. We got for those of you following the main show, we're doing Decomposers Month this month, all horror movie scores.
Oh, nice.
We've got horror movie maven Andy Sell coming on the show.
Oh, awesome.
Next week.
He's such a sweetheart.
Andy's a regular. He comes every Halloween to do this with us. So we did one in June this year because we had nothing else to do. So that'll be exciting. Yeah, check out all of Danger's stuff, the Countless Thousands stuff, the Unpop stuff. And I cannot thank you enough for taking the time out of your day to come and hang out on my stupid show, Danger. I really appreciate it, man.
You gave me an opportunity to sit and talk about literally my favorite piece of art on my time, on reflective to my schedule. So thank you for having me, man. It was such a delight. I really appreciate it. You have me back on whenever. I've got other shit I could totally talk about.
I absolutely want to do that, actually, because I feel like you and I could talk at length about a lot of this stuff. I love the passion that you speak with. It's just been a delight to sort of bask in, especially at a very dark time in human history. It's great that there are people that still love stuff out there, and I appreciate that you're one of them.
Dude, stuff is great.
Stuff is awesome.
Stuff is better than it's ever been. Some stuff is better than it's ever been, and some stuff continues to show you that it is and remains a triumph. So the Weakerthans Left and Leaving, go buy it and listen to it forever.
And some stuff is only made good by the caliber of the guests. And so to those of you listening, I thank you very, very much for joining us on our musical journey and for being a patron. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this week's episode. So feel free to get at me at Composers Pod or at Alex James Tunes on Twitter. Like the man says, music is the glue of the world. It holds it all together. Without it, life would be meaningless. That's all for this week, friends. I have been Krueger, and this has been Kruegerecords.